First world problems, first world problems. Yeah. A few years ago, I came home to find my roommate watching a movie I had never heard of called Syrup.
This product is image in a can.
I sat down and watched it with her for about 20 or 30 minutes, and my recollection of it was that it was, to say the very least, bad.
This product could be sneakers or t-shirts or glow-in-the-dark headbands. It's not about the fluid, it's about the image.
Kind of giving me wannabe Wolf of Wall Street energy, but like without any teeth or any of the things that made that movie interesting or entertaining.
The success depends on people being shallow, superficial, and desperate for attention.
And just like filled to the brim with cringy dialogue and acting.
This is the American dream in a can.
Now, to be fair, it actually came out a few months before Wolf of Wall Street, so any similarities are a coincidence, but that was like the general vibe I was getting from it. The like edgy business satire sort of thing.
The first thing you learn in business school is that you need to market yourself.
I'm assuming you're after the young, cynical, image-conscious consumer?
Exactly, it'll be like drinking irony.
We ended up turning it off, but something about it stuck with me, and I found myself thinking back to it a lot. I actually tried to find it again over the years a few times to see if it was as bad as I remember, but I couldn't remember what it was called or who was in it to look it up. Anyway, I recently happened across it again and was happy to see that it is, in fact, as bad as I remember. I have a special place in my heart for bad movies that have all the fixins of a good movie, like a decent budget, good cast, an interesting or fun premise, but then just like miss the mark in some easily fixable way that ends up making the whole thing unintentionally hilarious. Like a movie that just makes me baffled with the question of, why is this like this? You were so close. My favorite example of this is Wonder Woman 1984. Minor spoilers if you care about that, but you probably shouldn't. There's a subplot in that movie where Diana accidentally brings back her dead boyfriend in someone else's body. They then have sex using this man's unconscious body as a prop in his own bed, and then Diana struggles with whether or not to undo the magic and give this man his life back. It's super weird, completely decimates the protagonist's moral integrity, and it's completely unnecessary to the plot, serving literally no purpose. Like, he could have just come back in his own body. The magic that brought him back is shown to be able to do pretty much anything.
I really wish I had a coffee.
Hey, I got Erica a coffee, but she's out sick. Does anybody want this?
Yeah, I'll take one.
Yes, I wish I had more help, but there are just too many calls to take.
Hi. I'm sorry to bother you. I meant to be...
You're hired!
Tell me what you wish for, your highness.
For all the heathens to be kept out forever.
It wouldn't have changed anything else about the movie, and you're left scratching your head and wondering, why is this like this?
I should probably go and figure out how a stone brought my boyfriend back in someone else's body.
10 out of 10. Wouldn't change a thing. Now, Syrup doesn't fall down quite as hard as Wonder Woman, being a smaller indie movie and all, and because the confusing decisions aren't as blatant or ridiculous, but it is a much more obscure movie, and I don't think many people know about it, so I figured it would be a good topic for my first video essay. So today, that's what we're doing. I'm going to go over this strange movie and break down what about it fascinates me. Let's get into it. This is Syrup, the American dream in a fucking can.
Looking at a billboard is supposed to feel like love at first sight, but it's not real. It's just marketing.
At the start of the movie, we're introduced to Scat, played by Shiloh Fernandez, whose real name is Michael.
Yeah, my name's Scat.
The name Scat is supposed to make you think of jazz, and he tells us he picked this new name to brand himself.
You see, the first thing you learn in business school is that you need to market yourself before the ads do it for you.
Apparently, this is the first thing they teach you in business school, and he takes it to such an extreme that he even makes his mom call him Scat.
You used to be so innovative. Remember when you won the science fair, Michael?
Mom, my name is Scat now.
We are also introduced to his roommate, Sneaky Pete, played by Kellan Lutz. That's right, that Kellan Lutz, the very same heartthrob who was at the time fresh off of his breakout role, a brief cameo on the hit NBC show 30 Rock.
Great uncle, Mama's baby is out of marshmallows.
Sweet grandnephew, I've been warming more marshmallows for you in the pocket of my dungarees.
Pete once broke his jaw and couldn't speak for 3 months. At the time, he was taking Marketing 304, persona creation, so he created the persona of Sneaky Pete, which basically just means that he wears sunglasses and winter hats indoors and never speaks.
He hasn't said a word since.
Scat has a supposed $1 million idea after dropping a soda can and saying, "F***." He storms into Pete's room to tell him about his genius idea, and then decides to take it to an executive at a soda company called Addison that produces a popular drink called Addy. That executive is Six, played by Amber Heard. When he can't get a meeting with her, he pulls the fire alarm so he can pitch to her outside of the building. Apparently, the whole building is evacuated, but there are only about a dozen people outside. Extras are expensive, guys. It's fine. He pitches his idea.
Hey, jet black can called
And she agrees to meet him for lunch. At lunch, she calls his idea mediocre, but seemingly agrees to develop the product. She tells him that he won't need to come in until the board meets next week. Then he presses her on why she picked the name Six, which she insists is her real name, and tells an obviously fake story about her parents calling her by her age and then dying in a plane crash before she turns 7.
I believe that you could remember your first birthday, which I don't. What happened to 7?
When I was 6, my parents died in a plane crash. Taxi!
At home, Scat relishes that there was sexual tension between the two and says that he's always wanted sexual tension,
I think there was some sexual tension. I always wanted sexual tension.
implying either that Scat has never had sex or that if he has, it was bad. Six then tries pitching the idea to the board without Scat, but he sneaks into the building and crashes the meeting. Scat agrees to sell the trademark for his idea for $2 million before realizing that he didn't actually register the trademark. When he tries to, he finds out that Stinky Pete has stolen his idea and registered it after Scat told him about it.
Just this morning, too.
What?
One person, but with 2 names.
Pete immediately meets with Six and they cut Scat out, as evidenced by them passing off a red folder on the street. Scat returns home to find all of his furniture gone. I guess because Pete moved out and owned all the furniture. Not really explained. He is then seen working at a telemarketer call center. Before long, Sneaky Pete usurps Six's position and she is put back on Addie Classic, much to her chagrin. Six wants to beat Pete, and since ideas are not her thing, she recruits Scat. Because I guess ideas are his thing. He agrees, but insists, very creepily, that he stays with her during this time.
I'm definitely staying at your place then.
I live in Times Square with my girlfriend. Tina doesn't like men.
The first morning after he stays, she makes him a full-ass breakfast.
You like him fluffy? I made him fluffy.
They have an entry-level exchange about sexism.
So what, according to you, women aren't allowed to cook for men? You know, reversing the gender stereotype doesn't eliminate it.
And then she watches him eat.
In Marketing 482, Product Relatability, you learn to analyze love, longing, and desire as if it were a tool to sell a product.
It is weird. Scat is set up in a cubicle and told that if anyone asks, he is working on Addie Classic, not fuck. I don't have any idea what he's meant to be doing in this office, how any of this could be accomplished at home, or how he's supposed to lie to people about what he's doing when anyone could just glance at his computer screen or notepad while walking past. We see his notepad with some high-level drawing of a stick figure girl holding a can with the words "fuck it hard," and an arrow pointing to the stick figure with the words "the opposite of hard," establishing Scat's capabilities as a competent ideas man. Scat and Six have an exchange about Six's personality.
What about your inability to accept anyone else's point of view?
Focus. Let's focus.
Your paranoia?
Business savvy.
Obsessive need to know everything that's going on.
Organizational skills.
Scat explains to us art versus marketing.
This way makes better stuff, but a lot of the time there's no market for it. This way makes more money, but a lot of the time the idea sucks.
And ultimately, Scat admits that he's got nothing.
I've got nothing.
After failing to come up with an idea by the deadline, Scat takes his anger out on a vending machine when it fails to dispense a soda can. He knocks the vending machine onto himself, giving him the idea for the new campaign. We then see an ad where Kirstie Alley says the new slogan.
Last year, 12 Americans lost their lives while trying to steal from vending machines. Wouldn't you die for a fuck?
And no one ever questions how Scat was crushed by a vending machine and walked away unscathed, even though the movie acknowledges that this is something that should kill you. After the success of the new campaign, we are introduced to Pete's new personal assistant, who dresses like Six and calls herself 3. In the book, this character's name is At. So, Six is upset that someone has stolen her image because I guess she thought it wasn't trash.
Do you know how long it took me to develop that?
3 confronts Scat, asks him why he likes Six, and then implies that she was rejected by Six at some point because Six is not even a real lesbian.
Yeah, of course I know that.
Well, you could have saved me some embarrassment.
That night, Six invites Scat to sleep in her bed, but rejects him when he tries to kiss her.
Oh, what was that?
How do you think you're doing?
I'm kissing you.
Sometime later, someone allegedly dies after trying to shake a can of fuck out of a vending machine, and we get a moody exchange in the rain where Scat projects everything that sucks about himself onto Six, lamenting what they do as marketers.
Why do you do this?
Is
there anything genuine about you? About what you do?
They attend the funeral, where Scat speaks for reasons unknown, and starts quoting better movies in what I can only assume is an attempt to make us forget that we're watching this movie.
I was so lost with what we could do.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could
that I never considered whether we should.
They didn't stop to think if they should.
It's a great power that we wield. It's a great and terrible power.
Terrible. Yes. But great.
Maybe we've forgotten that one basic truth.
With great power
Power requires responsibility.
comes great responsibility.
Six realizes that everyone there is an actor because I guess they're too hot to be at a funeral.
All these people look awfully attractive to you.
And because this woman was seen applying an irritant to make it look like she was crying, even though you can't see her eyes behind her giant sunglasses. They expose Pete as the orchestrator of this sham funeral intended to make Six and Scat look bad, and Six tries to get the company to fire Pete, but Scat is fired instead for exposing the lie to the public. Scat is then picked up by representatives of Zefco, a rival company.
We are not at liberty to reveal our employer, Mr. Scat, but we can say they turned over $18.4 billion last year.
Zefco.
It's too specific.
They are incredibly stupid and want to hire Six and Scat to help them sell their own energy drinks. Scat then seems to think he invents the idea of artificial scarcity.
And don't tell me that I just want you because I can't have you, because that's...
A concept I can only assume he heard in a marketing class, forgot about, and then at this moment remembered without remembering where he heard it.
We're standing here in the middle of Times Square, and I gotta tell you, the crowd is absolutely crazy.
How long have you been online, man?
A whole week. The makers of Beanie Babies, Thai Incorporated, announced over the internet that it's over.
After just 70 days on sale, the glorious Bambi 2 DVD goes into the Disney vault for 10 years.
He explains his idea for Average Cock to the board, and they roll out the new overly complex scheme to what is ostensibly great success.
Z2 releases Average Cock with absolutely no above the line, but we send a creative product to the 100 hottest people in the country. A personalized can with their name and their number on the back. There are 100 numbered cans, each linked to a specific celebrity. Miss Hilton is currently in possession of the only 88 diamonds in the world. Hilton considers them worthy enough to be seen with her product. If our people see someone in public with an 88 we don't feel is worthy of cock, we will terminate the 88. This product is image in a can. We take image very seriously. That's it, people. Those of you who brought cans can begin.
Before long, a kid takes his own life after not being able to get one of the cool kid cans of cock.
Okay, yeah, the note says...
I don't want to know what the note says.
No, I got it. It's right here. It's right here. I love everybody. I just wish I could have been cooler.
This somehow prompts a lawsuit from his parents, and Scat is told that he needs to fire Six because of it. Six takes a meeting with another creative before he can fire her, and Scat throws a tantrum because he is a child.
She always starts with those fucking ideas.
He then goes on TV to apologize on behalf of Zefco and pontificates uninterrupted about the movie's themes in a ridiculously unbelievable interview that could never possibly have happened in real life.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most successful ad campaigns of all time. It'll certainly go down in history as one of the most daring. I know who Damian White is, or who he was. You know, because I fell in love with the dream too. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life chasing after an enigma.
As the interview plays on a huge screen for some reason, Scat says his name is Michael and tries to get Six to tell him her real name.
Michael. It's my name. What's your real name?
And you're so used to this that you don't even understand. You don't realize it, okay? But your body does. Your heart rate increases, your pupils dilate, your breathing becomes faster, and you become alert. Because you've been tapped.
She insists that it is Six, and he leaves her there.
Without marketing, you wouldn't know who you are.
She is the drink.
Sometimes you need to walk away from that.
She is all image and no substance.
You're just drinking the same old stuff.
She is just syrup with a label.
A lost soul who's still drinking syrup.
That's the movie. This movie really only has two characters, Scat and Six, two of the dumbest names in movie history.
6? My father said that's how many beers it took.
Everyone else is effectively just a prop character. Many of them don't have more than a couple of scenes.
Fook. Wait, it's not Swedish.
It's not Fook, it's Fook.
Some of them are criminally wasted.
Fook?
And no one is making this feel like anything resembling a real world inhabited by real people. The only prominent side character, from a plot perspective at least, is Sneaky Pete. And seeing as he only has one scene where he speaks, he's still just a prop character that's just there to move the plot along.
With rivalry always comes motivation to succeed.
Beyond that, we have 3, who shows up, pisses off 6, tempts Scat, and then is never seen or heard from again outside of Sneaky Pete saying at the end that she replaced him.
That 3, man. She took my job at Addy.
And every other character is either a cookie-cutter businessman that they pitch ideas to, or a swooning floozy there to prop up Scat's sex appeal and make 6 jealous.
Don't you have somewhere to be?
Which would be fine if this movie could decide if it wanted to take itself seriously or not, but seeing as this is not an outright slapstick comedy and actually seems to want us to take the drama and themes seriously, the characters of this world are noticeably underdeveloped. Our protagonist, Scat, is constantly disheveled to the point that it's kind of weird that no one points it out. I mean, what was he doing in a pitch meeting that made him come out looking like this?
Holy crap. Did they just buy it?
And also apparently garnered a round of applause. He comes across as creepy with his resting Anakin face.
This is what it feels like to be the guy you need.
And his attempts to kiss 6 when it isn't warranted.
As this is a business lunch, a handshake is appropriate.
Or consented to.
Oh, what was that?
What the hell do you think you're doing?
I'm kissing you.
And he's a big baby who likes to project his insecurities onto 6 during climactic scenes of the movie, probably because the movie thinks that these moments are the best time to espouse its thesis to us, and 6 is ultimately the target of those themes.
I feel like I'm going to my own execution. You knew it was impossible, but you still had the nerve. You know what? This isn't even about drama. This is about basic respect and human decency.
6 is ironically the more likable and interesting of the 2, in my opinion, though that might only be because she is more palatable by comparison. She is written to be an enigma that Scat is trying to solve. Most of what we learn about her is presented as being obviously fake, an image created to market herself.
Do you know how hard it is for me to tell you the truth?
She is constantly sending mixed signals to Scat, and the movie suggests that this is a calculated tactic to get men to take her seriously when 6 stops the movie to explain the different categories that men put women into.
Mothers, virgins, sluts, and bitches. None of the above is suitable for the modern businesswoman. But you can create your own image by selecting pieces of each archetype that work for you. This leaves men confused and unable to pigeonhole you. What they are forced to do instead is take you seriously.
The effectiveness of this strategy is questionable, though. For instance, she has the new campaign that they came up with taken from her and given to Sneaky Pete during a meeting in a strip club. She is later further replaced by the appearance of 3, and in the end she is fired as a scapegoat after the cock scandal, which was Scat's idea, not hers. All of this despite having graduated from Stanford Business School at the age of 21.
I graduated from high school when I was 15, courtesy of an advanced learning program. I did 4 years at UCLA, an MBA at Stanford, and now after 3 months at Addison, I am 21 years old.
While 6 is not a relatable or likable character, she isn't supposed to be. She's there to be an object of aspiration for Scat. She offers a foot in the door in the marketing world, while also leveraging his attraction to her to motivate him into providing ideas for her. He is left to try and decide if her feelings for him are real, or if she is just using him, while we, the audience, do the same. And while her manipulation of his feelings may be uncouth, it is only really possible because of his treatment of her in the first place. I mean, he meets her, speaks to her for all of 5 minutes, determines that everything about her is fake, and then decides that he is in love with her.
I'm in love. She's like a rose dipped in poison. She sells herself better than anyone I've ever met.
Sneaky Pete even calls him out toward the end of the movie.
I don't even know her real name.
You, my friend, are in love with an image.
If you're going to knowingly project your own desires and expectations onto somebody you just met, you can't really be mad at that person for treating you with the same complete lack of respect. My fascination with this movie is centered around 2 particular aspects of it, and the one I want to talk about first is the weird relationship between Scat and 6. The dynamic between them is easy enough to explain in theory, as I've already done in this video, but many of their scenes together are very confusing to me. Scat lashes out at 6 several times throughout the movie, and his tantrums rarely make any sense to me. The first time he does this is after trying to come up with a new campaign for Addison by the deadline. 6 tells him that if they don't have a new campaign ready, then they will both be fired.
I canceled the old campaign already. It's too late to go back.
Scat calls it excess pressure and gets mad at her about making him breakfast for some reason.
This isn't excess pressure. This feels like excess pressure. feel used.
You're throwing a tantrum.
Well then, you shouldn't have made me breakfast.
The thing is, Scat was only brought in as a consultant for this week anyway, so what is he getting fired from? And she made the deadline clearly known from the start, so it's not like this is something she's doing to him, it's just the parameters of the job that he agreed to do.
This is only for 5 days.
Why?
Because if any new production's gonna make it in time for summer, they need it by the end of the week.
That he would have any reason to be mad at her for this is weird, and it's even more weird that this leads him to be mad that she made him breakfast. To shut him up, she kisses him and then tells him,
You can do this.
he is filled with temporary inspiration, but fails to come up with anything, leading to another scene where he blames Six for his failure, declaring,
This is not cool. This is not cool.
Again, all she has really done to him here is provide him with an opportunity to get his foot in the door. His failure negatively affects her more than it affects him, since she actually has a job to lose, and his tantrum makes him come off as entitled and whiny, which makes her apparent attraction to him later just outright baffling.
I'm finding you very attractive right now.
Later, after Six sees Scat reject 3, she invites him to sleep in her bed because it is going to be cold. This is certainly played as being enticing, and Six even turns to camera and explains strip teases as a type of marketing.
Sex appeal is marketing. It's not the naked body that's exciting. It's a possibility.
However, once in bed, she sets some very clear ground rules, including instructions not to cross onto her side of the bed.
That's your side. All right, you stay on that side. This is my side. There's no need for overlap.
Scat immediately breaks this rule and tries to kiss her, a transgression which gets him slapped and leads to this exchange.
Oh, what was that?
What the hell do you think you're doing?
I'm kissing you.
I'm not your little woman.
You invited me to bed.
Can't ever take me for granted.
I understand where Scat is reading some mixed signals, but the boundary to stay on his side was very clear, so his surprise at being rejected doesn't make sense. But the response of, I'm not your little woman, feels just as out of place. I'm genuinely not sure if I even understand what that is supposed to mean in this context, because it just sounds so far from anything I would expect a real person to say in this situation. Not your little woman sounds like she doesn't want a relationship or doesn't want him to condescend her or something like that. But Scat was clearly trying to initiate sex. It just seems like a weird thing to say in response. Is that just me? Is this just how straight people talk to each other in bed? Scat then asks what he is doing there, and Six appears conflicted and says, I don't know. He presses her, asking if she cares about him, or if he's just a naive moron that she is using to get what she wants. She says he is more than a naive moron, and the scene ends. Again, asking if she cares, rather than asking if she likes him, or is attracted to him, or asking her, do I make you horny? Randy? Do I make you horny, baby? Yeah, do I? It just seems like weird phrasing to me. I mean, if she invited you into her bed because it's going to be cold and not because she wanted to have sex, then that implies that her motives are entirely based on your well-being. Ergo, she cares. She just doesn't want to have sex with you. A thing she has made clear about a half dozen times at this point. The thing that is very clearly what you were upset about not getting. There's just something off about this whole scene. It feels like it was written by algorithm rather than being a conversation any real people would have in this situation. But the whole thing comes to a head about 3 scenes and 1 montage later after they hear that someone supposedly died after imitating the Kirstie Alley commercial. They meet outside of Scat's empty apartment, in the rain because this guy cries when movies are sad. And this whole scene seems to be trying so hard to make me feel for Scat while also being completely nonsensical.
Do you ever stop and think about the people that we manipulate?
And they're wanting something so badly, they do anything for a goddamn energy drink. And for what? I mean, why?
I don't understand how anyone could think that Kirstie Alley saying, wouldn't you die for a fuck, could be thought of as manipulating someone into wanting something so badly. Advertisements are manipulative, sure, but this is pretty far into the realm of personal responsibility. I mean, people were literally eating Tide Pods, and I don't remember anyone blaming Tide. I highly doubt the person who wrote, if it's clean, it's gotta be Tide, lost any sleep over it. They didn't even change Tide Pods to look less appetizing. They're still sold in big jugs that look like they could be carrying Sunny D, looking like oversized gushers full of gooey, fruity deliciousness. The funny thing about this whole thing is, Six acknowledges that people die from shaking vending machines.
Scat, people actually get killed doing that.
And the commercial states that 12 people a year die this way.
Last year, 12 Americans lost their lives while trying to steal from vending machines.
In reality, it's like 1 or 2 people die every year in vending machine related accidents, but the movie wants us to think that it's 12, so obviously they should have expected that this would happen. At the fake funeral, the priest says,
Parker tragically discovered that life is not always like it is on TV.
The commercial said people die doing this. The kid supposedly did it and died. Seems like, in this case, things happen exactly the same as they do on TV. They're trying so hard to make it seem like Scat should feel guilty about the kid's death, and I just don't see any reason why he would.
Why do you do this? Is there anything genuine about you? About what you do?
Okay, so this is where Scat really starts projecting. I mean, their entire relationship up to this point seems exclusively to be a working one, and the entire time, Scat is either trying to pitch a marketing idea or trying to market himself to Six, and being rejected. Everything about his narrating suggests that marketing is the only thing that's on his mind.
Marketing.
Marketing.
Marketing. Marketing.
Marketers.
Marketing.
And then he starts laying into Six about how there's nothing genuine about her. Why does she do this? Why do you do this, Scat? It feels like this is supposed to be the point, that he's just working through his own doubts and projecting them onto her, but his doubts don't really make sense, so we're left with a scene where he monologues aggressively at a pouty Amber Heard about problems that aren't problems.
Do you feel important?
Do you?
Do you feel empowered? Is that it?
Absolutely.
What happens when you go home and get into bed and realize that you're no one?
She's no one because she doesn't want to open up to you specifically. Got it.
And you look at me with those stupid, sexy eyes. Fuck.
I don't understand this turn from being distraught about the kid's death to being upset at Six for rejecting him and maybe toying with his feelings to encourage productivity. And I realize that the movie is trying to connect marketing's effect on consumers to Six's effect on Scat, because she's the drink, that's the movie. But nothing he is upset about makes any sense. It doesn't make sense that he seems to blame himself for the kid's death. It makes even less sense for him to project that onto Six. And it doesn't make sense for him to be mad about Six rejecting him when she has set clear boundaries against his advances at every turn. She tells him early on that she is a lesbian. He deduces that this is a lie, which would still clearly imply that she is not at all interested, and he pursues her anyway, and then is mad that she continues to reject him. And when does he decide to have his coming to Jesus moment with her? Once everyone is ostensibly grieving about a kid who ostensibly died?
And I just want to know you. Six, I just want to know you. That's all I've ever wanted, is to know you.
All you ever wanted? You just met her a couple weeks ago. I want to be clear here. I did not cut out any dialogue from this scene. Six shows up at Scat's apartment for some reason, listens to him for less than 2 minutes, and then just turns around and leaves. Scat claimed earlier in the movie that he couldn't go back to his apartment because he didn't have any furniture and the lease was almost up. So why is he back here? And why did Six come here? Did they plan to meet outside of the apartment he used to live at for some reason? That's pretty weird. Did she come to check up on him? If so, then why didn't she say anything? And why did she know he would be here? I just don't understand the decision to have Amber Heard show up in this scene outside this apartment and then not speak while Scat stumbles through trying to connect the movie's plot to its themes. And then she just turns around and leaves without even saying anything. Also, this isn't relevant to anything, but Scat in this scene is coming in and out of the light that's behind him, which makes for some interesting cuts when it seems to break continuity. That, combined with the timing of the inspirational music that comes in, creates this shot that looks like Scat is revealing himself to be one of the angels from Touched by an Angel.
I'm an angel of God.
I'm an angel. I'm an angel sent from God.
Can't be the only one to know about that show. Also, the scene starts and ends with basically the exact same shot of Scat turning to look at Six. I initially thought they had just reused the shot, but they are slightly different. So apparently they just filmed the same blocking for both the start and end of this scene, which just seems like a very strange choice. This whole scene is on fire. I could watch it a million times and not get bored. After the supposed scandal, Scat is fired and Six apparently quits in protest. But she never tells him that she quit. He continues to think that she was responsible for his firing, and he continuously accuses her of colluding with Sneaky Pete, including in this very tragic voicemail.
You don't have the brains or the decency as a human being. I don't give a damn that you're 12 years old or 11 years old or that you're a child. You are a rude, thoughtless little pig, okay?
I'm just kidding. This is the voicemail.
Six. It really is so clever. Sexy Six. Look, I just have one question for you. Did you make him breakfast, huh?
Are you guys a team now? You and Pete? Screw you. I miss you.
The part that confuses me here is how we are expected at various points in the movie to take their relationship seriously. The conflicts they have kind of come out of nowhere, don't really make sense, and make them both look selfish and unattractive. There's no chemistry, nothing really appealing about either one of them. Very little appealing about either one of them, and yet we're clearly meant to be rooting for the relationship, or maybe just for Scat's part in it specifically, without understanding what it is that they even like about each other. Later, they start working at Zevco, and shit immediately gets weird again. On their first day of work, they get a tour of the office, get shown to their workspace, and Six asks her new boss a work-related question.
In fact, let me ask you something. How do you feel about attack marketing? I know there's some potential for backlash, but in a basic duopoly like this, diluting their USP could be nothing but beneficial for us.
This causes Scat to flip his lid, I guess because she's more horny for business than she is for him. I'm just guessing. I do not understand why he's angry. He says to her,
Anyone who works for you loses their soul.
I'm sorry to hear
That I lost my soul, you should
No,
be.
that you don't want to...
what is he talking about? This entire movie he has been fighting tooth and nail to get rich by making it in the marketing world. It's all he talks about, and he's shown to be pretty aggressive about it. It's the only thing that we know about him. It has never changed, and is not shown to have anything to do with Six's influence. Were there some other scenes that were cut out of the movie that would have shown Scat compromising his morals or integrity? Or better yet, maybe a scene or two that shows Scat to actually have morals or integrity. Is he referring to his dream of getting rich? Because they are currently on track for that to happen, thanks in large part to Six. What part of his soul is supposed to have been lost, and how is it Six's fault? None of this tracks, so we just get another scene where they start fighting for no reason, because presumably the screenwriters felt that it was time for more conflict, but didn't bother writing a scene that made sense for the characters they had created. But of course, this is all just a lead up to Scat saying to Six,
And don't tell me that I just want you because I can't have you, because that's...
which is the setup for him to realize that artificial scarcity is a thing, and then come up with his ridiculous cock idea. Clearly, they knew how they wanted to lead into the next plot point, wrote the scene starting from that, and then just never really connected the dots. Scat and Six just say generic things that people say in movies when they are fighting, so the movie can continue to happen.
Why? So the movie can happen. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Amazing. Later, Scat says he is like that naive kid who still believed in Santa Claus until someone told him it wasn't real, while again asking Six why she does all this.
I'm like that. That kid who still believed in Santa Claus until some asshole kid told him that it didn't exist.
I'm that asshole kid, huh?
But what is his naive belief in relationship to this apparent success in the business world? He wanted to use his marketing savvy to get rich, and at this point in the movie, he has apparently done that.
Rumor has it they're grooming him to be the next VP.
How does this Santa Claus metaphor even work within this movie? What the fuck is he talking about? When she interviews another creator for a job, he treats it like he caught her cheating.
You ignore my calls for this?
It's not what you think, Scat.
Of course it's not what I think. Because it's you.
Like, dude, she's doing her job. Fix your tie, tuck in your shirt, and calm down. Maybe go work on your Edward Cullen cosplay. It'll make you feel better. Then at the end of the movie, we get their final scene on the street with Scat's interview playing in the background. Now, fortunately, the TV lets everyone know that this was a pre-taped interview, so we aren't confused as to how he is both on the street and on the TV at the same time. Thanks, movie! This whole scene falls flat for me. I get that the movie wants to beat us over the head with the comparison between Six and commercial marketing, and that Scat saying in the interview,
You know, because I fell in love with the dream too. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life chasing after an enigma.
is him actually talking about Six. But that sentiment only really works for Six, and the interview he was doing is about Zevco. It doesn't make sense for the energy drinks at all. How are people who want energy drinks chasing an enigma? And when he says,
You ruined all this for me.
I am still just at a complete loss as to how she ruined anything for him. She was the one who got fired due to a scandal caused by his marketing scheme. He is constantly upset at her for things that are usually him projecting his own issues, if not just completely nonsensical grievances. And he's constantly insisting that everything about her is a lie and acts like she owes him an explanation, which he is not entitled to. He is pursuing her, but then acts like she is failing to live up to his standards. Dude! It would make sense if it were in reverse, if Six was pursuing him and her arc was having to let her guard down and open up to him in order to get past that barrier. That would make sense. But as is, with him pursuing her while she continues to put up barrier after barrier, it's just him constantly chasing her around and telling her everything wrong about herself until he inevitably just gives up. Notably, this is not the same ending as in the book. The book ends with them effectively vanquishing Sneaky Pete and then ending up together. That ending made a lot more sense to me because it gives you the impression that Six did actually have feelings for him all along, making the scenes where he continues to pursue her a good deal more palatable. And with her having to learn to let her guard down with Scat in order to get to that ending, she actually feels like she gets some growth and thus feels more like an actual character. In the final scene of the movie, when Six refuses to tell him her name and he walks away, it doesn't feel like there's any actual weight to it. He's just finally done what he should have done from the start, which is just leave her alone. It also doesn't really make sense that she is still refusing to admit that Six isn't her name, because she did tell him that she developed the name Six when 3 showed up.
Do you know how long it took me to develop that?
So this just reads as him getting rejected for the umpteenth time and finally realizing that it's not going to happen. She's just a lying liar who always lies. The end. While this ending does make more sense for the themes of the movie, because she is the drink, the connection that they try to make between Six and the drink is messy at best, and ultimately just completely falls flat. When I first saw a bit of this movie coming in partway through, I remember being very confused what the relationship was even supposed to be. And watching it full, I understand why I was confused, because even with the full context of how they met and where everything is going, I still just don't really understand what the filmmakers were even going for. Am I really supposed to root for this relationship? If that's the case, shouldn't they have had at least one scene where they even get along? Instead, we get a couple of shots of Six giving Scat fucky eyes when he's not looking.
You're making fucky eyes. You're like,
What a fucky.
like,
Oh, those are my eyes?
bleed out.
They have sex once after Scat sells the cock idea to Zefko, and that's pretty much it. Even when they're at the bar, they're not even really interacting with each other. Scat's just moping and Six is just brushing him off.
What sort of profound nonsense is that?
Are we supposed to feel triumphant when he walks away from her at the end? We've just spent the entire movie watching Scat pursue Six with a mix of creepy advances and childish tantrums, and now he's walking away with a shit-eating grin and the backing of soft inspirational music.
Same old stuff.
So I guess the hero won in the end. He finally took no for an answer. What an arc. But the thing that really uncannies my valley about this movie is how off-base their understanding of marketing and public consumption is at almost every turn. They establish pretty early on that they aren't taking themselves completely seriously with the introduction of Sneaky Pete. Presumably, much of what they do is intended to be unrealistic and acts as a caricature of marketing and consumerism in the real world.
You know, my brother once told me that nothing someone says before the word but really counts.
But you can't claim that it is all just supposed to be a joke when your lead characters are constantly stopping the movie, turning to camera, and giving mini TED Talks about marketing and business. And if it is supposed to be a caricature, then by definition, it should be an exaggeration of something true and real. The comedy and the commentary fall flat in a lot of places because the writers didn't seem to do any research on the subject of their movie. So to say that any of this is not worth criticizing because it's supposed to be a comedy doesn't really work as a defense of the movie's themes and ideas. That is like the filmic version of comedians who want to hide behind their just jokes while also making claims about being the philosophers of the modern age and declaring that they need to push boundaries for the good of society, and then they just hide behind whichever philosophy serves them at the time. Either it's just jokes and we shouldn't take it seriously, or it's a meaningful discussion and we should be paying attention to what you have to say. You can't have it both ways. I mean, what if Star Wars pulled that kind of crap? Imagine you're watching Star Wars and you're wondering how things fall without gravity. How can you hear explosions in space? What do these people think a parsec is? But then you put that out of your mind because you understand that this is just a movie and it doesn't need to always make realistic sense for you to understand the characters' experiences and motivations. But then Daisy Ridley turns to camera, does her best Neil deGrasse Tyson impression, and explains that the sun is yellow because it's made of butter. Not only does that do nothing to help me understand the story that's being told, it really only calls attention to how divorced the movie is from the actual reality of its subject matter. So while this movie is obviously supposed to be, in part at least, a comedy, I'm still going to be taking the movie's ideas mostly at face value, particularly because of the many times they stop the movie to preach about something they don't seem to actually understand. They start strong right in the first scene of the movie, and it is possibly the best representation of what I am talking about. Sneaky Pete develops the name Sneaky Pete while he is taking marketing personas and receives the only perfect score. Now, I never went to business school, but I do work in marketing, and I do know this. Marketing personas are definitely a real thing, and there are classes and marketing programs that teach about them. But you create personas to identify customers, not to brand yourself before the ads do it for you. Okay, so for instance, say you were advertising for a company that sells large home appliances. You would research your clientele to figure out who is interested in your products, segment out the major demographics of your potential buyers, and then create personas to humanize, understand, and talk about your primary customer groups. You'd probably find that your biggest buyers are middle class, middle aged parents. So maybe you would have one persona called Martha for stay at home moms, one you'd call Cheryl for single working moms, one called Bro Bro McGoats for dads who like to grill and watch sports, and so on. Then you would create ads that speak more directly to the needs of these different groups and advertise on platforms that they are likely to be on, using the personas you've created as a way to humanize and talk about these different groups. It seems pretty obvious that the writers just Googled the curriculum for a marketing degree and just picked some stuff off the list to put in the movie without doing any research whatsoever into what those classes actually teach. They do not teach people to invent gimmicky characters for themselves, then go around insisting that they're real personalities. Believe it or not, if you go to a marketing conference, you will not actually be surrounded by people brandishing character gimmicks like they're in a particularly talentless sketch comedy group in some nonsensical attempt to impress each other. It takes one Google search and maybe 2 minutes of reading to see that this is not what we are referring to when we talk about marketing personas. Also at the start of the movie, we have the supposed $1 million idea that Scat has. As he drops the soda can and says fuck, he gets the idea to call an energy drink fuck, as his narration tells us that people don't actually care about the drink, they just want the new sexier label.
Because taste doesn't matter. It's all about the branding.
This is simply not a revolutionary idea, and that he would think putting an ostensibly edgy label on a drink would be $1 million idea is kind of ridiculous. The movie treats it like this is genius, and both he and Six act like this is actually something that is worth selling to Addison for $2 million. This sounds like the type of drunk idea people have when they're swasty-faced and all excited about some unrealistic business venture.
Puzzles. People will be like, why is it called puzzles? That's the puzzle.
And also, at puzzles, no last call.
Dude, we should make an energy drink with the name fuck, but just spell it different to get around the censors. Bro, that would sell like $1 million! Anytime a major drink company releases a new drink, they get a boost in sales, even if the new drink isn't that different, or even if it's just the same thing just packaged differently. This is part of the reason why every so often we'll get some kind of gimmick like Clear Pepsi or Coke Zero. A big part of this is that people see something new and want to try it to see what it is like. This is a well-known phenomenon and not something that the soda companies would need Scat to inform them about. Can you imagine someone walking up to an executive on the street and saying, "You should put a swear word on a soda can," and that executive giving the person even the fucking time of day? First of all, there are plenty of other edgy names that you could put on an energy drink. When they pitch their cock drink to Penn and Teller stunt doubles, they even say,
"Isn't that basically fuck?"
Why, yes. Yes, it is. Whatever effect you're going for, there are plenty of edgy, sexually suggestive names that you could go with. Even if he had trademarked the name, he has very little to negotiate with. Hell, they could stick with a name that sounds like fuck, but is just a different spelling than F-U-K-K. If they want to put an edgy name on a drink, they really don't need Scat's input at all for that. There are plenty of possibilities that would have the same effect. This is something that companies have already tried doing, and drinks like cocaine or pussy don't even seem to have been very successful. Furthermore, he ends up shouting his idea, the whole of his idea, to Six out on the street.
Okay, jet black can called f***.
If you had something to sell, you just gave it up in its entirety. What is to stop Six from stealing the idea and claiming it was hers, which she does, and yet she still acts like this is a new idea, worth taking a meeting for, and worth a $2 million payout? After coming up with the Kirstie Alley commercial, Scat and Six are jet-setting across the country to do Boston or do New York.
No, I'm doing Boston. I thought you were doing New York.
I don't know what exactly they're supposed to be doing, that is never explained, but Sneaky Pete is said to be doing New York and is apparently going to be on Letterman.
No, Sneaky Pete is doing New York. He's doing Letterman.
He doesn't even speak.
Why oh why would he be going on Letterman? Never mind the fact that he doesn't talk. He's an executive at a soda company, not exactly a standard guest on a late-night talk show. Can you imagine how weird it would be if one of the Koch brothers was on Letterman just to talk about the latest slogan for New Coke? But the average cock team is easily the most convoluted bit of bullcrap that this movie has to offer. I glossed over it earlier because I wanted to talk about it in full here. The plan operates as follows. First, they market a new drink called Average Cock from a small subsidiary that is made to look independent and not associated with Zefco.
Now, Zeph is way too mainstream for this, so we set up a small subsidiary that looks independent. We call it Z2.
The name they picked for this new company is Z2 because Scat is an ideas man. They then invest a lot into the marketing of this drink until it takes off. Instead of enjoying the apparent success that all this effort has brought, they release an exclusive new series of cans for cock that are each numbered and associated with a different celebrity.
Miss Hilton is currently in possession of the only 88s in the world.
That celebrity is the only one given the initial cans of that line.
And we will not sell any 88s to anyone unless they bring in an unopened 88.
Only people who have access to an unopened can with that number can purchase more drinks with that number.
That's a sign that Miss Hilton considers them worthy enough to be seen with her product.
If anyone Zefco doesn't consider worthy is seen with one of these cans,
and we don't feel that they're cock material,
that number is completely discontinued. The idea being that only people with some proximity to a well-regarded celebrity will be able to be seen drinking this exclusive line of energy drinks.
This product is image in a can. We take image very seriously.
There is so much to unpack here. First of all, there's the question of who is deciding if someone is not worthy of drinking cock and what are the criteria. If you are wondering if this would be very problematic and based entirely in judgmental bias, fear not. The movie confirms it when Six discontinues the number because she saw fat people with cans.
I have Miss Barrymore's people on the line. They're threatening to sue because
she
we
should have thought of that
terminated the
before she
91s.
started handing them out at concerts. I saw fat guys.
We had no choice.
Mr. Scat.
Seriously? Never mind how effed up that is from the perspective of basic human decency, completely sabotaging this movie's numerous attempts at getting you to care about these characters. It also just doesn't make sense from a sales perspective to exclude a major demo to maintain the image of a bigoted company. Also, I'm pretty sure that is illegal. The second it got out that they were doing this, they would be boycotted and definitely sued. My next question is how celebrities are expected to keep control of who can buy their cans. The second you hand an unopened can to someone, that person can buy as many new cans as they want. If these were something that people actually wanted, as the movie suggests, surely someone would get their hands on a can of celebrity cock, buy as much as they could, and start selling them on eBay.
A 34 just showed up on eBay. Fine,
Even if no one who got a can from a celebrity did this, they are sold with other energy drinks in stores. Surely there would be some convenience store workers willing to steal them. The cans would get in unworthy hands, and they would stop selling the product. And if celebrities were able to keep control of who was buying their cans, then there would be very few people able to buy this product. They started out with only 100 celebrities. Zefco is supposed to be a mainstream drink company. Why would they be interested in this expansive marketing campaign for a product that they only intend to sell to at most a few thousand people? Their boss even inquires about this, asking why Scat is refusing to sell product. Sell product was the one task that Six and Scat were given, so it makes sense that he'd be unhappy. But Scat's response is that if they did sell celebrity cock to everyone, then it would be screwing over the world's top celebrities. My man then calls him a genius for not selling product, the one job he was hired to do. If the existence of celebrity cock increased the demand for regular cock, then this would at least make sense, but the movie wants us to think that this is not the case.
As soon as word gets out about this, sales of average cock will free fall, sure.
So then what is the point here? Also, I cannot fathom any celebrities genuinely giving a f about any of this, so I do not understand how they would be screwing anyone over or how the celebrities would be humiliated. And what exactly is the incentive for celebrities to actually participate? I can't imagine any of the world's biggest celebrities getting an energy drink with their name on it and even bothering to send a representative to this meeting. There just isn't any reason for them to participate, and yet apparently Miss Barrymore threatens to sue because her can gets discontinued.
I have Miss Barrymore's people on the line. They're threatening to sue.
Why would she care? Because some kind of warehouse said, "We take image very seriously." Wow, I'm sold. Some guy told me I would look cool if I was seen drinking these. That's all I need to hear. F my millions of dollars. That generic looking can full of piss-flavored syrup water is what'll give me status. I mean, if celebrities wanted to have some kind of exclusive product to sell to fans, they could just make their own merch, which they do. Which they would then have full control over and would actually get the profit for. Also, why is it Z2? I mean, obviously the name is stupid, but my real beef is that Zefco is supposed to be a mainstream drink company.
We can say they turned over $18.4 billion last year.
So if they were actually releasing this drink themselves, it would at least have some clout behind it. Instead, they hide their involvement and make up a whole new brand that they then have to build from the ground up.
Now, Z2 releases average cock with absolutely no above the line, but a ton of astroturfing, word of mouth, seeding, black lemmings, the works.
I guess this is to appeal to hipsters who want to feel like this is something grassroots and unique, but that appeal would totally go away once it was revealed that the whole thing is driven by celebrity endorsements. So what is the point of hiding Zefco's involvement? Apparently they stop hiding it anyway because when the scandal happens, Scat appears on TV as a representative of Zefco, not Z2.
I want to offer my sincere condolences to the White family on behalf of Zefco.
So did they just drop the Z2 cover at some point off screen, or did the screenwriters just forget about it? And again, what was the point? And this logistics nightmare is really only made worse with Scat sneering through the reveal and acting like everything he's explaining is super smart. I mean, he starts the explanation by turning to camera and saying,
You know that old question, if you could have dinner with any 5 people, living or dead, who would you choose? Nobody ever picks their friends.
which is meant to suggest that people are more interested in celebrities than they are in their friends. But the reason people don't pick their friends is because they can already have dinner with them. You can choose to resurrect Einstein for a day, or you can have dinner with your friend Jared, who you saw 2 nights ago. Gosh, I wonder which one I'll pick. It would really help sell that Scat knows what he's talking about if any of his ideas or assertions actually made relatable sense. Also, just for the record,
You. Me. Yeah, you. Yeah, you. Yeah.
oh, stunning. As I recall, this was the point in my first viewing where I tapped out. His idea is just too convoluted and nonsensical, and it makes his smug expressions so cringy. I mean, why isn't this just a membership? Why even have the whole unopened can aspect, which makes it impossible to actually control who's buying the product? If they're so coveted, why are they selling these in convenience stores alongside other soda where they would be easily stolen when you could just sell them online or at least keep them behind the counter? And sure, celebrity endorsements would raise the demand for normal people, but why would celebrities be on board in the first place? These are pretty surface level issues. It's not even stuff that you really have to think about to notice. The scandal that then leads to Six's firing is predictably just as stupid. Someone takes their own life because they can't get a can with their lucky number on it. This somehow leads to backlash against Zepco because they are just too cool and people just can't stop from hurting themselves because of a marketing campaign. The idea that anyone at this company or in the media would really put this much attention onto this as a scandal is just about as unlikely as anyone actually caring about whether they could get a can with a specific number on it. But Mikey, you say, it's not just the number on the can. The can is tied to a celebrity. It's the celebrity's status that makes people want it. Then why did the kid specifically say that he wanted a can with his lucky number on it?
CNN is going live at 8 p.m. with the number 17 being Damian White's lucky number.
They didn't even bother to mention which celebrity the number was associated with. The celebrity endorsement is supposed to be the entire appeal of this scheme, and yet for some reason it is completely absent from the kid's motivation for taking his own life. It seems like, given that one of the intended themes of this movie seems to be that people will go to great lengths to achieve the image of wealth and or celebrity status, that this would be the perfect moment to drive that point home. Instead, that aspect of the cock scheme is completely ignored at what is supposed to be the climax of the movie. If the celebrity status was actually the emphasis, then the comparison to Six would at least make a little more sense. When Scat is giving his pre-taped interview at the end of the movie and he starts talking about falling in love with a dream and chasing after an enigma, it is clearly meant to be a double meaning, referring to Six while ostensibly being about the drink. And if the scandal was about a kid who was obsessed with proximity to a celebrity, then that would go a long way to making the things Scat is saying in the interview actually make a tiny amount of sense.
That'll never happen because in the dream, the fantasy.
How many people are actually dreaming about the fantasy of having a can with their lucky number on it? How is that an enigma? Why isn't the interview stopping him to ask what the fuck he's talking about? Obsession with a celebrity who you will never actually get to know makes much more sense as a parallel to Scat's obsession with Six. He keeps chasing her because of her image, but he is never actually able to know her personally. He is only able to project his own fantasies onto her, and yet he continuously pursues her in spite of the fact that he is fully aware that everything about her is unknowable, unachievable, and masked by her adherence to projecting her own image. The allegory practically writes itself. The connection between Six and Cock should be easy enough to convey, and yet the celebrity aspect of the scheme seems to be completely removed from the movie right after its introduction. Instead, we are expected to believe that this kid took his own life over a number, and everyone just took that at face value instead of inferring that maybe he had some other things going on and that this wasn't really the fault of an energy drink marketing campaign. This movie and the book it is based on were both written by Maxx Barry. He actually has a cameo in the restaurant scene where Six breaks the fourth wall to explain the different types of women. Syrup, released in 1999, was the first of 7 books that Barry had written, and it has mostly received positive reviews. When this book was released, Maxx added an extra X to his name, something that he dropped for all subsequent releases, in what I assume was an attempt to brand himself before the book did it for him.
The first thing you learn in business school is they teach you to pick a new name. Brand yourself before the ads do it for you.
I had to read this book to see how similar it was to the movie, and I saw it was regarded as having a cult following, so I was very curious to see how faithful the movie was to the original story. For the first half of the book, the plot is largely the same, with mostly superficial differences. Stinky Pete actually does talk, just not a lot. Addison is just Coca-Cola. And we get more of Scat's inner monologue, where he definitely doesn't want us to think that he's misogynistic, declaring himself a couple of times to be not that kind of guy, in a way that is giving very heavy nice guy vibes.
Girls always complain that guys aren't nice, but then if they find a nice guy, they're not always interested.
I refuse to have a bad relationship with women.
We do also get a lot more time with other characters. We actually meet Six's roommate, Tina, who acts as a kind of foil for Six. And Scat has a tumultuous relationship with a girl named Cindy, who comes in and out of the plot a couple of times. Scat is also constantly getting kicked out of apartments that he is staying at by Cindy, Six, or Sneaky Pete. I believe I counted 5 times that he gets booted, with a couple of those times involving someone throwing his few belongings out the window. It's pretty funny. The fuck idea, Sneaky Pete stealing it, Six recruiting Scat to get back at Sneaky Pete, and the vending machine accident are all straight from the book. But after that, the book goes in a very different direction. First of all, there is no fake death that leads to Scat's firing. Instead, Sneaky Pete ambushes Scat and Six by setting up a meeting at a strip club and making them talk to their boss on the phone while he forces them to get lap dances. This is presented as a way to call Six on her lie about being a lesbian, because if she refuses the lap dance, then it proves that she is not interested in women.
Brilliant.
Obviously, this is very stupid, but I love it as a sort of time capsule to what mainstream perception of gay people was in the late 90s. The implication essentially being that lesbians are just men with boobs, and men are apparently horny zombies who obviously would sacrifice anything for the sight of a naked woman. Let me put it this way. If you can't imagine that someone who is attracted to women wouldn't be able to simply refuse the lap dance, as though the mere sight of a naked woman was enough to compel that person beyond their ability to control themselves, you're probably projecting. But I feel like Maxx Barry is projecting on behalf of pretty much every straight young male character in film at the time.
Did I miss anything?
No, you are just in time.
Oh,
This is incredible.
Oh my God.
How's this look?
Very nice.
We've got Bush.
Oh, hello, pie.
It's one thing that Sneaky Pete and Scat seem to think this is a clever play, but it's ridiculous that Six also seems to feel legitimately cornered. As though she couldn't just say, "Grow up, Pete, we're here to get a job done," and refuse to put up with this crap without outing her actual sexuality. During this phone call with their boss, Sneaky Pete tells him that Six would not be able to focus on the new campaign because he lies and says that she is pregnant. This understandably infuriates Six, causing her to lose her temper for a moment, leading to Sneaky Pete accusing her of being too emotional for the job. This is what leads to Scat and Six losing control of the new campaign instead of the fake death. Just before this meeting, Scat was riding high after selling his ad idea, and Six warns him that it is not over. She says that she is a woman in a dick measuring contest and the men are not going to want to see her succeed. He tells her that she is overreacting and is dismissive of her concerns. And at that point in the book, I fully suspected that Scat was going to be proven right and that the message was going to be that Six was overreacting and that she should just not worry about it. But I think my perception of this story had been completely tarnished by the way Scat is portrayed in the movie, plus the way he talks about Six in his narration up until this point in the book. And I was surprised to see this book take this turn towards demonstrating a very real struggle that women can face in the corporate world. Earlier in the book, when Scat is referring to himself as not that kind of guy, it is juxtaposed with him aggressively sexualizing Six in his head and sharing aspirations like wanting to be implicated in vicious rumors around Drew Barrymore's sex parties.
Yeah, you could be our mascot.
This gave me the impression that Scat describing himself in non-misogynistic ways was Maxx Barry missing the mark on what that kind of guy was, and attempting to assure us that despite the blatant sexualization of Six going on in his head, Scat actually is a nice guy who respects women. It was only with her being proven right at the strip club that I realized that this is probably meant to be an ironic misconception about himself, and is part of the setup to him having to eat his words and admit to Six that she was right, as a major step in him understanding and respecting Six as a real person and not just an image, a feat that the movie completely leaves out. Remember that scene from the movie I showed earlier where Scat tries to call out Six for her personality flaws and she rebrands those traits as business savvy?
What about your inability to accept anyone else's point of view?
Focus. Let's focus.
Your paranoia?
Business savvy.
Obsessive need to know everything that's going on.
Organizational skills.
Aggressiveness?
That exchange exists in the book, but instead it is Six's roommate Tina who is making the accusations, and it is Scat who's defending Six. Six isn't even present. This comes after Scat has had to swallow his pride and admit to Six that he was wrong about her overreacting, so it feels like a good moment of growth for him and for the relationship. Overall, both characters feel more fleshed out and have more meaningful arcs than in the movie. Scat learns to respect Six and not just see her for her image, while Six learns to trust Scat and starts to let down some of her barriers. versus the movie where Six never lets down her barriers and instead just lies to Scat until he gets bored and leaves. Another major difference in the second half of the book is that there is no rival company or cock scheme here at all. Instead, Scat and Six are approached by a Coca-Cola executive who wants to undercut Sneaky Pete. Pete has been put in charge of a big budget movie that will basically act as one big Coca-Cola ad, and Scat and Six are tasked with trying to weasel away control. The second half of the book is mostly them trying to make unreachable deadline after unreachable deadline until they inevitably pull it off, impressing their bosses and usurping Sneaky Pete. The movie they make stars Tom Cruise and Gwyneth Paltrow as the heroes, with Winona Ryder as the leader of an alien race that is addicted to coke, and thus invades to steal the secret recipe. When they screen this movie to the executives cannot seem to find anything wrong with it. It is lauded as being the first movie ever designed to market a product, even though this was not at all a new concept at the time. Scat starts panicking because he has to find fault with it to discredit Sneaky Pete, but somehow he just can't think of anything wrong with it. Eventually he says that the issue with Sneaky Pete's version of the movie is that it takes itself too seriously. The movie, where aliens invade to get their hands on Coca-Cola, is taking itself too seriously. But he says that the more important issue is that none of the characters are likable or relatable, that no one would want to identify with these characters. Movie that is completely ridiculous, takes itself way too seriously, and doesn't have any characters that anyone would want to identify or relate with. Interesting. Sounds familiar. The ridiculousness of the Alien movie, mixed with the insistence by the characters in the story that it is in fact a high-quality movie, highlights what I believe to be the point of the book, that the world of marketing is an absurd one. It's a place where people can make millions of dollars off the simple idea of changing the label on a soda can. A boardroom full of executives can watch the most nonsensical movie and straight-faced call it a masterpiece. Scat can't even afford his own apartment, and yet he is able to weasel his way into success by the skin of his teeth, and his shenanigans shape the direction of the world's largest soda company. None of this makes sense, and that is the point. In this way, I believe both the movie and the book are trying to convey the same idea, but it just came across a lot clearer in the book for me. The tonal inconsistency of the movie really undercuts the tongue-in-cheek nature of the whole idea. Overall, I definitely thought the book was much better, and I imagine any book fans who were excited about this movie were most likely disappointed. The movie seems to have really leaned into how clever it thinks it's being.
The success of this product depends on people being shallow, superficial, self-obsessed, greedy, and desperate for attention. This is the American dream in a fucking can.
I mean, there are excerpts from marketing classes sprinkled throughout the book for added flavor, but they don't seem to be as preachy or pretentious as in the movie.
It's all fake. Don't you get it? It's real. It's all fake. The entire thing is...
The book in general just doesn't seem to be trying to make the same connection between Six and the soda. It isn't nearly as bogged down by sloppy, self-important metaphors. Which is really saying something because he wrote this book about a decade before the movie when he was only 23 years old. So understanding now that Maxx Barry certainly does understand these characters, is perfectly competent at composing narrative arcs, and does seem to actually have something to say, I had to wonder what went wrong with the movie. To learn a little bit more about Max, I first went to Wikipedia, which doesn't have a lot of info, except it does say that he worked in marketing at Hewlett-Packard, and it doesn't say anything about him going to college. That isn't proof that he didn't go to business school, but worked in marketing without going to school for it is definitely the vibe I'm getting. And I respect it.
Thanks one to no one!
The more interesting thing about his wiki, though, is in his bibliography. Here we see links to all his books, a few short stories, and 4 essays. I was very eager to see what kind of stuff he would have published essays about, but these links redirect to his website, where he has a blog, and I'm just confused why whoever set up this page linked to these specific posts and labeled them as essays. I mean, for one, he's been updating his blog for over a decade. Why pick these posts and list them on his wiki? 3 of the posts are also formatted in a short column on one side of the page. I have no idea why that is. And one of them is him just complaining about things that critics say. Maybe these were actually published somewhere, but why would a list of his complaints about critics be published? Anyway, the point is, this led me to his website and accompanying blog, which is where I found this post, where he talks about the imminent release of his movie. He says it is being launched as a sneak on video on demand to generate buzz before its theatrical release. According to Box Office Mojo, the box office take was $301. So I guess that didn't work. He talks about his worries about not knowing if the movie will bomb or will be a breakout hit, and says that he has not yet seen it himself, opting to wait until it comes out in theaters and see it with everyone else. On the subject of how different it is from the book, he says, "Although I haven't seen it and don't know how much of the various scripts I wrote are in the final movie, I do know I wrote a lot of stuff that departed heavily from the book's plot." Which is kind of the soft confirmation that I was looking for. The movie definitely has the feel of having been lost in the editing room, and I wonder how much of it actually lines up with Max's vision, considering that it feels so different from the book. I mean, I don't know how common it is for a movie to have various scripts and for the writer of the movie to not even know what is in the final product, but it is definitely hard to place the flaws of this movie at his feet. The director, Aram Rappaport, is also credited as a writer, so this might just be his influence. It looks like this was his second time directing a movie, so I'm definitely interested in checking out his other movies to see if this is just his style or what. The next movie Aram Rappaport did was 2017's The Crash, which stars Frank Grillo, Minnie Driver, and John Leguizamo, and based on the trailer is about hackers causing a stock market crash.
We can do this, but we need to reroute our markets to another computer server. What happens if we fail?
It looks like a lot of people staring intensely at computer screens and having aggressive phone conversations, and it has an even lower Rotten Tomato score than Syrup, so I'm very excited to check it out at some point. Hey, look guys, Quinn Fabray's here.
Unplug everything, unplug it, pull it offline.
It seems to be a very different vibe than Syrup, so it'll be interesting to see if there are any parallels. So that's it. That's Syrup. The book launched a successful writing career for its author, but the movie adaptation is a soulless mess that nobody saw, and after spending all the time it took to make this video, it may now be my favorite bad movie of all time. I don't know how to end these. I don't know. It feels really weird doing the whole like and subscribe, guys. Come on and get back for another video. Come on down for another video later. Come on, get back here. Just do the little bell notification thing. Like, here's the thing though, because if you do the bell notification, you're not going to get a ton of notifications. Because I'm like, maybe I'll have another video out in like a month. You're not even going to remember me at that point. You're not even going to know. So if you just like hit the little notification thing, then you're going to get a thing when it comes out, and you'll be like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that guy. I saw that stupid video where he talked about that dumb movie that nobody gives a fuck about. Maybe he'll have another dumb movie that nobody will give a fuck about that I can fucking fall asleep to because it's so boring. I know that's what you're doing. I know that's what you're doing every day. You fucking fall asleep to video essays. You're not even fucking absorbing the information. I see you out there. I see you out there do the same shit. That's fine, man, because it's a view for me. And you can just like leave a little comment and be like, oh my god, I slept so good. Your video was so boring.